Venezuela announced a massive mobilization of its military forces as the U.S. continues its military buildup in the Caribbean. The announcement comes in the wake of U.S. strikes that have targeted at least 20 vessels in the waters around Latin America, killing dozens of people. The Trump administration has said the strikes are part of an effort to combat drug trafficking, but have so far released limited details. And the U.S. is sending more resources to the region. The USS Gerald Ford, America's largest warship, crossed into the U.S. Southern Command's area of responsibility, which includes the Caribbean. CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata joins us for more. Charlie, what exactly does Venezuela's mobilization look like?
Yeah, well, this came from the defense minister in Venezuela, who said that he had ordered up 200,000 troops, actually a little bit more than that. And that means the ground forces in Venezuela, but also air defense systems, whatever maritime forces that they have, which is not substantial, but essentially everything that they've got in preparation for a U.S. invasion or to defend against U.S. airstrikes. And there is something to consider if you are going to launch airstrikes in Venezuela. The first thing you're going to want to do is to suppress their air defense systems. And they do have Russian-supplied air defenses, S-300s, which are fully capable of taking down aircraft. So those things have been mobilized. In addition to that, they're going to mobilize guerrilla forces, because there are militias, as we're all aware, inside Venezuela that can also do the work of the government when ordered to do so. So that is the announcement that was made, and the exercises are already underway. That was announced yesterday, so they're happening now.
So what does the Ford bring that was not already there?
A lot. What the order of the mission right now is drug interdiction, and we've been seeing strikes probably from Reaper drones, probably from some of the aircraft, AC-130 gunships, taking out some of those fast boats. What they're sending when you send the Ford is 4 squadrons, 48 F-18 fighter jets, and all of the support aircraft to go with them, wow, including jammers. So this is the type of thing that if you were to launch airstrikes in a country, say like against the Houthis, you would send a carrier, and the carrier would do the lion's share of the work. So this is not the kind of military package that you would see in a drug interdiction operation. This is something you would see as a flex, but it's about optics as much as anything else. And as has been said with the Navy and pretty much everybody around the world, there is no single flex like a United States aircraft carrier. And as you said, this is the largest and most advanced aircraft carrier in the world. And we also have to mention the destroyers that are going with it. 3 more inside that flotilla. There's 7 or 8 battleships, or excuse me, warships already there, capable of mounting or launching Tomahawk missiles. So you're talking about a massive military package of a kind that hasn't been seen there in decades.
At the same time, the UK and Colombia have now stopped sharing some intelligence with the U.S. over concerns about the legality of these strikes. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, first of all, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that this idea about the Brits not sharing intelligence is fake. In terms of the Colombians who have announced that they're no longer sharing intelligence with the United States, that actually could have a significant impact, because the United States is reliant to some degree on Colombian intelligence to stop drug runners from Colombia into Mexico and then to the United States.
All right, Charlie D'Agata, thank you.
Thank you.